What's up everyone, welcome back to the Carnarium. I'm Waste and I have another video for you today. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing Commander gameplay breakdown from a recent game that I played on MTGO. If you're not familiar, MTGO is the original client that Wizard uses for playing online. I won't go into too much detail here, but it is pretty sweet. You can play formats that you can't play on Arena, like Legacy and Commander. This is a part 2 of the other video I did where I broke down my paper Florian deck. Florian is a 3-mana RAKDOS commander with first strike, and at the beginning of each of your post-combat main phases, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponent's lost this turn. Exile one of those cards and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exiled card this turn. So this deck is designed around group SLUG, meaning we're trying to do lots of damage to our opponents and make them lose a lot of life. That way we trigger Florian's ability and we get to look at the top X cards of our library, where X is the amount of life loss and damage we did that turn. If you want to see the in-depth breakdown of this deck, go check out part 1, link in the description. I go through each card and its importance in the deck and why I put it in there, and the synergy and the overall strategy of the deck. In this video, we're going to look at actual Commander gameplay where I play this deck out in the wild. I'm playing against random, so they really could be bringing anything to the table. We'll see how this deck stacks up against that. But real quick, before we get into the game, if you like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe, like, comment. If you want to join the Discord, talk with other people from the channel, Discord link is in the video description as well as the deck list. Alright, without further ado, let's jump into the game and see how Florian stacks up against the competition. Alright, so here we are on turn 1. I'm going to keep a hand of Swamp, Scavenger Grounds, Warlock Class, Malachor Rebirth, Stormfist Crusader, Damnation, and Soul of New Phyrexia. I feel like it's a good curve. We have a couple 1-drops. We'll probably play this as a land if we don't draw another land, so we have 3 in the hand. Stormfist Crusader can draw us cards and start pinging the opponents. We have a board wipe if we need a board wipe, and we have a large creature that can protect our board if and when we need to. Pairs nicely with Damnation if we want to wipe the board and protect all of our stuff. Our commander is Florian, as we discussed, and we're playing against Jaya Ballard. So this is a 3-mana 2/2, has a couple abilities. You can read them there if you want. Shalai and Halar, a Naya commander, and this is an interesting one. Will, Blade of Frontiers. I've not played against this too many times, but it's a dice rolling commander, and you have choose a background as an option, and the background is Clan Crafter, which is sacrificing artifacts to put +1/+1 counters and draw cards. So it is a Izzet deck. So I'm going to fast forward through these first few turns. There's not a lot that happens. I'll recap everything once we get a little bit deeper in the game. Alright, here we are on turn 5. So just to recap what has happened so far, the Jaya player has gotten down a couple of red creatures, and they've attacked me, which is why my life total is at 33. Jaya is a very interesting commander. I don't see this one very often. So you can pay a red, tap, discard a card, destroy target blue permanent. You can pay a generic and a red, tap, discard a card. Jaya Task Mage deals 3 damage to any target. A creature dealt damage this way can't be regenerated. And you can pay 7 total mana, so 5 generic, 2 red, tap and discard a card. Jaya Balor deals 6 damage to each creature and each player. So Jaya can do a lot of different things, but that 6 damage to each creature and each player, having a board wipe on a stick in the command zone is pretty powerful, so we're keeping our eye on that. The Shalai Halal player tried to get down Mana Reflection early, but it got countered by the blue player with an offer you can't refuse. You'll see there's a theme of this player trying to put down mana doublers and mana triplers and things like that. They have Arbor Elf down now, so they can do the untap a forest, get double mana out of 1 land, and they're ramping kind of far ahead. So this is the player that's ramping far ahead. The red player has the most aggro, but they're only on 4 lands. And then the Will player, they're kind of just doing an Izzet thing. They have mana up, they have some creatures down, and they seem to be targeting these 2 players. For some reason, they're not targeting me. Probably because I have a Prosper now, which has Death Touch, but they didn't attack me when I didn't have anything down, so they must not see me as the more emergent threat. So it's our turn on turn 5. We exiled Rakdos Signet last turn. So if we play that, we get a treasure, which is probably what we're going to do here. So let's play the tape. 3 mana, there we go, Seething Song. So we got a bunch of mana. We're gonna get down RAKDOS Signet, get a treasure from Prosper. Use the mana, play Florian, use the rest of our mana, get down Loyal Subordinate. I'm gonna go ahead and pause right here. One other thing I forgot to mention was the triggers are still happening. MTGO, the replay client is a little bit slow. We got Warlock class down early, and this is something to keep your eye on. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not in the deck review, but this enchantment is just like Wound Reflection if you get it all the way up to level 3, except it can come down on turn 1 because it's only 1 mana. And what I like about Warlock class and other enchantments that scale up like this is people tend to not pay attention to them because they only remember the first level, you know, the first one in here being at the beginning of your end step. If a creature died this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. So they kind of just think of it as that, but they kind of forget that I can, at any time, once I have enough mana, level it up to level 3 and turn it into a Wound Reflection, which will make everyone lose the life that they already lost that turn. So we're gonna keep this enchantment on the board, and it's gonna turn out to be super important in this game. But I just wanted to point out that we already have it on level 2. I think we did that on turn 2 or turn 3. We used the level 2 ability to look at the top 3 cards of our library and take one out. So we're ready and poised to get it all the way up to level 3. Now our board is Florian, Prosper, and Loyal Subordinate. So Loyal Subordinate will make everyone lose 3 life, which will give us a total of 9 cards with Florian. We're getting card advantage with Prosper, so our board is pretty good right now. I didn't see the trigger because it happened so fast, but I believe what happened is I got a trigger with Florian, and I put down Temple of the False God from the Exile trigger. Let's keep the tape rolling. Prosper trigger, we exile Wound Reflection. So we're probably just gonna not cast this because we already have a Wound Reflection down. We don't need 2. And this one's gonna draw a lot more anxiety from the table than this one will. This one's sitting kind of incognito in the background. This one's right up in people's faces. Kami of Whispered Hopes. So the green deck's doing the green thing. You know, they're ramping, drawing cards. There's like an enchantment sub-theme in their deck, which is why they have stuff like enchantment-based doublers. It's just a lot of ramp. Let's see, rapid hybridization, so they get rid of their creature and they turn into a 3/3. Again, the Izzet player attacking someone besides me. The red player spent their turn getting rid of our Loyal Subordinate. I guess they felt like that was too much value for us. Okay, our turn again. So we're going to pause. So, our hand now consists of Pestilence, which we're going to cast here, Cataract Parasite, Twilight Prophet, we still have Stormfist Crusader, Damnation, and Soul of New Phyrexia. So, the reason I'm casting Pestilence is if we take a look at the board, it's a lot of little creatures. We have a 1/4 and a 3/3, right? But the board is a 1/1, a 2/2, a 1/1, a 1/2, a 1/1, a 1/3, a 1/1, a 3/3, that's a little bit bigger, 2/2, 4/3, 3/3, 5/4. So we'll get rid of a lot of creatures if we just put down Pestilence and activate it twice. We'll get rid of like 75% of the board, right? And we'll do 2 damage to each opponent. We're going to do damage to ourselves, but the opponent damage is all that matters with Florian. So that's 6 damage total with Florian, so we're going to look at the 6 cards with Florian's ability. So in this moment, it's a really good value play. Let's keep going. So that's what we're doing here. We're just activating Pestilence. I think this is where the red player, who's really got it out for me, targets my Prosper. They do 3 damage to it, and since I'm doing 1 damage to each creature and each player, Prosper dies. Womp womp. I wiped the entire red player's board, so I guess that's fair that they're getting rid of my Prosper. Doesn't really matter. Florian's ability is much stronger than Prosper's ability in this deck. So we took a land out of the 6 that we saw. I know it went by kind of fast. You can just pause it to see what else was in there. And we just played the land because we didn't have a land drop this turn. Gotta make your land drops in Commander. It's super important. See what the red player does. They play Wormcoil Engine. Pretty good card. 6/6 Death Touch Lifelink. Has an ability when it dies. Makes 2 more worms. Okay, on to the Shalai player's turn. So Zendikar Resurgent, I think this one makes it through. It does. So whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced, and whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Even better version of Mana Reflection. They're able to get it through the blue player's clutches. But I'm not showing the game chat, but I think we're all talking, and we're agreeing that this player is sort of the archenemy, and we gotta do something to knock them down a peg. You attacking. They're attacking me. So finally they come to me, but I don't think they realize that I have a 3/3 first striker, because this is a 4/3 and I just kill it with Florian. It's a sneaky little ability on Florian, but he is a first striking 3/3, so it's a good blocker. Stormfist Crusader triggers. So this is the one where we ping each opponent, we each get to draw a card, and then I draw my card for turn, so I get 2 cards here. So Boompile, this is, you know, in Rakdos we'd only have so many ways to blow up all the non-land permanents on the board, Boompile being one of them. There are other ones that are more expensive, but I tend to run Boompile because it's only 4 mana. So this is definitely a solution to the board. No one else is playing white, right? I'm not playing white. This is a mono red player. They're basically can't do anything about, you know, this player's board. And the Izzet player, you know, besides maybe a Cyclonic Rift or some kind of mass bounce, can't really do anything either. So this is probably one of the only cards that can effectively deal with the entire board. Again, why it's important to make all your land drops and not just depend on mana rocks, because if we blow up everything, we still have our lands, but we won't have our mana rock anymore. So it's a good thing that we drew a land. We can get that down and Boompile. Let's see if that's the direction I go here. Land. Probably wait for Florian's ability. Look at the top 3. So we got Exquisite Blood and a couple other things. I think we exile Tainted Pack here. I think we didn't want to cast any of that other stuff because we checked our mana and we wanted to cast Boompile. Let's see what else we run out. We run out Twilight Prophet. Oh yeah, this player, I forgot about that too. They also have a Trouble in Pairs. So like, they have double mana, they're drawing double cards, they're drawing cards off Zendikar's Resurgent because they're a creature deck. So, and they have Guardian Project. So they're getting like triple card draw every turn. So they're, you know, they have 8 cards in hand, they have way more mana than everyone. I'm just painting the picture of why they're the arch enemy of the table. Even though our board is somewhat scary, and this board is somewhat scary, this board is definitely the worst one. So we play Boompile, we also play Twilight Prophet and Cataract Parasite, and that seems a little contradictory, but you know, let me explain why. So I'm not going to activate Boompile, I'm just going to let it sit there, and I'm going to force someone to deal with it. It actually, kind of a funny thing happens, but we'll get to that in a sec. But I want you to keep an eye on Cataract Parasite. So this little 1-drop that does 1 damage to each player when they draw a card does work in this game. I want you to just count how many Cataract Parasite triggers come up. I'm gonna guess there's at least 15. So over the course of the rest of this game, Cataract Parasite deals out, it's got to be at least 15 damage to the table, which then gets doubled by when we eventually go up to level 3 on Warlock class. But This card is really good, as are other card draw punishers. I'm going to throw a couple more card draw punishers in this deck eventually when I upgrade it. They're just super good because people are trying to draw cards anyway. They're trying to draw cards to find answers to your board, and it just makes them die for trying to dig for an answer. So let's keep going. I think we're going to have to leave this in exile because we already played a land this turn. So red player's turn, Cataract Parasite trigger. See who they're attacking. They're attacking, yeah, makes sense. They're attacking the player that's way out ahead. They block with their token. Our deck doesn't like this creature because it has a big lifelink ability, so we really want to get rid of it. And there we go, the red player again, targeting our stuff. I don't know what I did to this guy, because I haven't really directly interfered with him except for wiping his board. I guess I wiped his board, so maybe that's the reason he's pissed, but he has put basically 90% of his efforts into my board, which is kind of interesting. But they destroy the Boompile, and because I had auto yields on, it didn't let me respond to the trigger. I could have, in response, tried to flip it. Whether or not I would have, I don't know. It ends up working out, but it would have been an option. I think I probably would have tried, just because this board is insane with all these different value engines going on. And, you know, we can rebuild. But I didn't get a chance to, and I put in the chat, I was like, I don't understand why you blew that up. It affects you the least. Like, if I Boompile, you know, they lose everything. They lose everything. I lose a good amount of stuff. All you're going to lose is your Wormcoil engine, which will then turn into 2/3/3s. So I was really confused why this player wasted their artifact removal on something that would really benefit them if I activated it. Something to think about when you're playing Commander is, you know, just because an opponent has a card that maybe affects your board, you got to take into account, does it affect everyone more than it affects me? And the answer in this situation is yes. Like, they wasted a card on something when they could have made me use the resource to take away the issue. They still would have had the same amount of power on the battlefield. They're going to end up with 2/3/3s, basically in the same exact situation. So, weird play from the red player. I think they were probably just upset that I wiped their board originally, and now they're trying to get vengeance. I don't know. But, you know, it's a good learning moment, so I'm pointing it out because I just thought that was a super weird play from a player that would really benefit from me activating this. Anyway. And then they play Lodestone Golem. So non-artifact spells cost 1 more to cast. Not a big deal because we have flushed out our mana really nicely. We don't have double mana, but we do have good mana. We have Temple of the False God online. Fertile Ground. Trigger the Citizen Champion. So here we go. Drawing cards, which they normally want to do, take a damage. I think that's 3 triggers so far off Cataract Parasite. I'm trying to keep a loose track in my head. July and Halar. Another Cataract Parasite trigger, so that's 4. Hydra's Growth was another enchantment, so they'll have to draw some more cards. Five Cataract Parasite triggers. If you want to read their commander, that's what it does. So they're just having a good old time, doing lots of stuff. You know how green players are. Make a ton of mana. Your Mirari's Wake, so they're going to make even more mana. It's an enchantment, so they're going to draw a card. Let's see, does the blue player answer? They do. Okay, so they counterspell the Mirari's Wake. That was too much. That was too much for the blue player. another triggers. I think that's 6 now. Up to 6, 7. I might be 1 off here. It's hard to talk and keep track. We're at 7 or 8, somewhere in there. So we're already almost halfway to 15. All right, 8. We'll just call that 8. Resculpt. So what do they get rid of? They get rid of their commander. Trouble in pairs. 9 Cataract Parasite triggers. God, we might actually get to 20 Cataract Parasite triggers. They attack the green player, we block. Like I said, we've all kind of discussed in the chat that this is the problem player right now, so that's why all the attention's going to them. Alright, our turn. 3 more triggers, so that's 12. $13. So we're going to combat with Twilight Prophet. Just get some extra damage in so we can look at some extra cards with Florian. Florian's trigger. Look at all these cards we get to look at. So I think I know which one I pick out of these. But why don't you take a moment and guess? So let's see how many cards this is. 4, 8, 12, 16, 21 cards. 21 cards. Incredible. So our opponents, let's take a look. 26, 6. So the problem player is at 6 health, and then 24. So I think we should go with Grey Merchant of Asphodel. It's going to do a ton of damage. Our devotion to 8, our devotion to black is 8 currently, and then when Grey Merchant comes down, it'll be 10. So we'll do 10 to each opponent, and we'll gain 30, which will put us up to like 61. Pretty good. Yep, we go for Grey Merchant. So, there's non-land permanent removal, and then there's player removal. And that's what this deck does. Removes players from the game. Alright, so we've got the Izzet player and the mono-red player left. That's the turn. 14 Cataract Parasite triggers. They're probably attacking me. Nope, they're attacking the Izzet player. Kind of weird. It is kind of useless to attack me because I'm at 61 life. But it is still kind of interesting because they've targeted me most of the game. $15. So we did hit 15 Cataract Parasite triggers. So they're going to do some artifact stuff, training grounds, takes away the activated ability, takes away that, basically the cost to sacrifice. It used to cost 2, now it costs nothing. So they can just sack and draw cards, but then they're going to get hit with Cataract Parasite. They don't do it probably as much as they would like. Stormfist Crusader. Also a nice combo with Cataract Parasite, so we're up to 16, 17 triggers with Cataract Parasite, because it forces people to draw cards. Attack in with Florian. Get a Florian trigger. Exile RAKDOS Charm. We choose that each creature deals 1 damage to its controller mode. That way it will do, let's see, 1, 2, 3 to the Izzet player, and 2 to the mono-red player. And then we're going to activate Warlock class, and this is where this enchantment will take over the game. Warlock class to level 3. Now we have a wound reflection. Can you imagine if we'd done that last turn? So this player actually wouldn't have died. They would have been down to 2 life, I believe, but they saw the writing on the wall and they just insta-scooped. You know, they probably would have just died to more Cataract Parasite triggers because they needed to draw cards. 18 Cataract Parasite triggers. So if this player had stayed in the game, there would have been even more. Okay, so this is this is where the game kind of like stalls for a little bit because they plop down the perfect hate piece to our deck. So Akroma's Memorial is a 7-mana artifact. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red. Like, what a perfect card to play against our deck because everything is black and red in our deck. So the creatures have protection from everything that we want to do, essentially, at least targeted stuff. They're still going to die to Damnation and other non-targeted removal. Our creatures can't block their creatures, 1 because they're flying, 2 because they have protection from them, and our creatures can't do damage to them because they have protection from them. So we're in a weird spot now. Thankfully this deck does a lot of non-combat damage, but it definitely is going to slow the deck down for a little bit. Stormfist Crusader. So this is where we gotta figure out a way to close the game, right? We don't have a lot of ways of doing it in our hand, but we do have a nice little combo that we kind of started the game with. We exile a mountain, play a mountain. We're just trying to get mana so we can do this play. We're gonna play the Soul of New Phyrexia, which, if you remember from the deck review, says it's a 6-mana, 6/6 trampler, but for 5 generic mana, permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So we can make all of our permanents indestructible, including our creatures, and then we can play Damnation, right? The reason I don't do that now is 1, I don't have the mana. 2, remember Jaya's ability, and I think they have enough mana for it. Let's see. So the 7-mana tap, discard a card, Jaya deals 6 damage to each creature and each player. So that would completely destroy our board, right? If they were able to get that off. Let's see, they have enough mana. If they were to, like, there's a million rituals in red. So there, you know, there's Jessica's Will, Mana Geyser, there's a million of them. So they could play one of those, have enough mana to play Jaya, you know, give it haste. There's lots of stuff in red that gives haste. It's definitely not that far-fetched for them to get this down and wipe our board. So I'm holding up 5 mana right now, just in case they try to pull something like that. Or they have another red sweeper effect. There are other red effects that deal, you know, 5 damage to each creature, 6 damage to each creature. So we only have enough mana to play Soul New Phyrexia and protect ourselves. We're still at a huge life total, so we're not in danger of dying this turn. We basically just need to make it through this turn cycle, and the next turn we can cast Damnation, activate Soul of New Phyrexia, swing in and win the game. Oh yeah, they have this weird suspend creature that's blowing up our non-basics, which is slowing us down. But we did such a good job land ramping that it's not hurting us too bad, but they are getting rid of our Temple of the False Gods here. What are we at, 19 now? Cataract Parasite triggers? So we're almost at 20. Enchant player. What does that say? Enchant player, when a creature deals combat damage, I think they get like +1/+1 counters. Because of Akroma's Memorial, they're basically back in this game, you know, and Wurmcoil Engine has lifelink, so every time they attack us, they're gaining life. Okay, 20 Cataract Parasite triggers. So here we go. We're going to play Damnation, activate Soul of New Phyrexia, make everything indestructible, blow up the board. They still get 2 Wurmcoil Engine tokens, so a 3/3 with lifelink and 1 with Death Touch. We swing in. Our stuff is still indestructible, so none of it's going to die to the Death Touch or from the damage from the creatures. Let's see how much damage we do. We do 8 damage, so here we go. The Wound Reflection is going to trigger, and they're going to lose 8 life and die. They lost more than 8 life. I don't... There's something else happened in there, but the point is they're dead. So Wound Reflection, aka Warlock class, coming in clutch. It's such a good card in the deck. I don't see anyone else ever play this card, and it's really, really good. It does take a while to get online. You know, obviously that's what, 1, 2, 3, plus 7, 10 mana total to get it to level 3, but the value you get along the way is still really good. I mean, it comes down really early with 1 mana. Level 2 is only 2 mana, and you basically get to look at the top 3 cards and choose the best one, put that in your hand, the rest go in your graveyard, and then when you have enough mana later in the game, you turn into a Wound Reflection, and Wound Reflection does work. It took out 2 of our 3 opponents, so really, really good card. Anyway, I just wanted to post this game because it was a good example of how the deck is supposed to work, how the deck interacts with other kinds of decks. We played 3 very different and unique style decks in this matchup, and it was able to navigate the nuances of all of them pretty well. We had answers for each of them when we needed them, and our overall game plan of just killing the table with life loss and damage came through in the end. Big shout out to Cataract Parasite, who did not 15, it did 20 damage over the course of the game from when it came down and hit the field. This 1 mana 1/1 did 20 damage to the table. Absolutely absurd. So there are other card draw punishers like Orcish Bowmasters, which I own and is in the deck, but there are other ones that have come out. You know, Shieldred is one of them, although that card's like $100 now, but there are other card draw punishers that are really good, and I'm gonna slot a couple of them in this deck. It's just a great way to lower people's life total, and unless they can get rid of the permanent, there's nothing that they can do about it. They gotta draw at least 1 card a turn, and most of the decks out there are built to draw lots and lots of cards, so, you know, you draw a lot of cards, you take a lot of damage, you die. That's what happened to the mono green player. They had like 20 life, but they kept drawing cards. They were drawing like 3+ cards a turn, and they eventually just got eroded away by Cataract Parasite. And I think we got to see Florian shine, right? You know, all sides of Florian. It's only 3 mana to come down, so it can come down relatively early in the game. It's a first striking 3/3, which is, you know, not a huge creature, but it is definitely a solid blocker. And we saw, you know, it take out a 4/3, you know, which is a sizable creature. And then we got to see its ability work magic. I mean, we were looking at 5, 10, even 20 cards in a turn, and we were able to take out the archenemy of the table with that trigger by getting a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. So if we didn't have that trigger, who knows how deep in our deck that card was. But because we got to look at 15 or 20 cards, we got to dig super deep and choose the best one. So yeah, I really like this deck. It's always super fun to play. Deck list is in the description. I'll do more of these types of Commander gameplay breakdowns for the other Commander decks that I own. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.